But I would also say, cancer and its treatment leaves behind a psychological trail as well. I had to wrestle with, this is the body that carried me through long races, and now you betrayed me. Really? How dare you break? But I got things to do. Um, but
I'm
also,
an Iron Man, for crying out loud. Don't you know who I am?
but on the flip side, you learn gratitude. You're more in touch with your body. Your friendships tend to strengthen around this. I wrote a lot in the book about some of my male friendships and guy friends who would say to me after we had lunch, "I love you." And not like the backslapping, we're all drunk kind of thing. Love you, man. Like really heartfelt kind of things. And the first couple of times it happened, I was completely thrown off. And my immediate thought was, am I going to die? Like they're telling me that I look good. Everything seems to be going well, but they're telling me this. They must think I'm going to die. Like that's the only reason they would be doing this. And so, I spent a lot of time talking with my friends and, even sometimes saying, like, why did you say that? Like, because I care about you and we've been friends for 30 years and why wouldn't I? I'm like, well, I don't know. And so it does change those friendships. It changes your perspective on things. One of the
There's a mental game too, because every time you go in, I mean, I'm NED. We all want to be NED, right? But there's still the scan anxiety. It's like every time you've got a scan scheduled, you get that scan anxiety, right? The scan anxiety. And then it's like, Doc, why does it take 2 weeks to tell me what the scan said? Dude, you could read it right there. Just tell me what the dang thing says. It's waiting, for the results too. So there's so much mental to even when you're NED, right? There's a lot of
there is.
mental games that go on.
I'm very glad you brought that up. I mentioned that I'm monitored very aggressively. So it's like every 3 months, a CAT scan, MRI, sigmoidoscopy. It feels like they happen like day after day. It's amazing how fast 3 months goes. And I recently had a 2-year colonoscopy. And so it was 2 years since I was diagnosed. That's how I was diagnosed the last time. And I will say, every time I go back for the test, I go to the same parking garage where the infusion center is. When I was doing the infusions, it was winter, it was cold and dark. I remember like it was yesterday. And every time I go back there, it's like, oh, back in that place. I'm the guy in, a spandex tri-suit. I'm not the one like with an IV pole and a gown in the back kind of thing. And so it is tough, even as I published the book. So the book came out on August 8th, which was the 2-year anniversary of my diagnosis with colorectal cancer. Um, and in the week leading up to it, I would have these dreams where I woke up that there had been a reoccurrence. And my first thought was, the book is already done. Like, what do I say then? Right. Because we're in that kind of gray zone where the book is done, it's not out yet. And I don't have time for this. But I will say there was, I told some of this story the other day. My wife, who brought me to every chemo infusion session religiously, was a better caretaker than I think I would be to her. Would pack up this black Stanley cup for me full of water because the more water you drink, you flush out the chemo and that kind of thing. To this day, I see that cup from across the room and I feel nauseous. And so, it doesn't leave. And so that anxiety is there. On the flip side, there's things that you're grateful for. When I was sitting in the infusion room, I would see people, probably med students and nurses kind of running by outside, getting their workouts in. And I'm like, I'm sitting in an infusion chair and I'm like, man, what I wouldn't give to be out there again. And now I am. And so now it's not like, and I have a pretty prescribed workout plan. Now it's, not I have to run 5 miles today. It's I get to run 5 miles today. I get to come to work and do my thing. I get to connect with other people. And you just learn to reframe some of the things. And, people talk about the grind. One of one of the wisecracks people come back with when you say, oh, how you doing? They'll just say, living the dream. And there's a part of me that's really sad about that because, face down a diagnosis, you realize that we actually all are living the dream, whether we know it